Thank you for tuning in to the Millennial America podcast, hosted by Joe Enders. Produced by the conservative millennial super PAC everyone is talking about, A Higher Standard. Paid for by A Higher Standard PAC and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. www.ahigherstandard.us.
Hey there, how's it going? My name is Joe Enders from the Windy City, good old Chicago, coming at you. This is Millennial America. I'd like to welcome everybody to this new and fresh podcast. The basic point of this podcast is we're going to do this twice a month, and we're going to put one, maybe, every other Wednesday is what we're going to try and go for. But the main goal is to reach out to millennials, especially conservative millennials, and just get them to listen in on the issues and talk about some policy, better educate them on the issues and what matters. So, I'm going to start out by doing a quick introduction of myself. I'm Joe Enders. I'm born and raised in Illinois. I've been surrounded by liberals my whole life, and honestly, my white privilege did not do me very well. I grew up in not the best conditions at all points in my life. I mean, even at one point in my life, I was homeless. I actually had to stay in a battered women's shelter because we had no place to go, and my mother just left and made up a lie about my father putting his hands on her, I guess I would say. Anyways, besides that point is economic hardship has been no issue, has been a real issue throughout me growing up. My upbringing was not the best. However, I come here, I'm now an avid activist for Turning Point USA and also this new super PAC, A Higher Standard. And I'm going to enjoy doing this because there's nothing more I like to do than vent out my politics, talk to other millennials. I'm currently going to school. I have an associate's degree in arts. I graduated with honors from the College of DuPage Community College. And I'm headed to the King's College over in New York soon to finish out my bachelor's degree in politics, economics, and philosophy. Yeah, I know. But anyways, I've been a prominent activist for free speech, limited government, and capitalism. So since then, I've turned my life around pretty well. It's not what it once was. I'm definitely happy about this, and I'm really excited to do this podcast with you guys. Honestly, I really am. And, so today on the show, we're going to go over a few things. We're going to be talking about the Brexit first, because talk about some big news. Britain out of nowhere just comes out of right field and just decides to, bam, right there. We're leaving the European Union. No one expected this. We had the BBC just promoting staying in the European Union as much as they possibly could. It seemed like a lot of people were on board with staying in the European Union. So no one expected when they voted to come out. This is a really, really big deal for the European Union because Great Britain was one of the biggest contributors, the cash cow, you could say, for the European Union. And it's, the main three are Germany, France, and Britain. But since Britain left, you look at it this way, they're losing 1/3 of their funding, and I'm not personally sure how long this is going to continue for. I mean, let's be honest with one another. If you lost 1/3 of all your money, you'd be certainly making either some big changes or you might even consider filing bankruptcy. So we're looking at this, and, I've been asked quite a bit, how is this going to affect the United States? I've heard a lot of people discuss this, saying, oh, this is negative, this is bad for us, look at the stock prices, they're plummeting. And I simply explain to them, it's like, don't worry, guys, it's going to be all right. Why is it going to be all right? Because this is good for us. This is good for Britain. It's not good for the rest of the European Union, but it will be once it collapses and these republics regain their autonomy and sovereignty as nations. Trust me on that, because if we look at the situation right now in the United States, we have a huge problem with inflation. We have a huge problem with with our dollar becoming ever more worthless as time goes on, and less people trusting it, and less people trading with it. And one of the biggest proponents of that was this new currency that was introduced called the euro, that many countries in Europe adopted. So the whole point I'm getting at here is Britain leaving is good for us. This is going to get less people hell-bent on competing with the dollar, and we're going to have more people possibly trading our dollar on global markets. We're going to have more people adopting the dollar, or at least a dollar-based currency, and we're going to see some well-needed deflation, and that is so important right now because we really need it. We need the value of our dollar to go up. Let's put this into perspective a little bit. The minimum wage 100 years ago was 5 silver quarters an hour. That's $1.25. However, the melt value of those 5 silver quarters adds up to $22 and I believe 25 cents today in melt value. Think about that for a second. These people were making the equivalent of $22 an hour minimum. These people had no problem living. They had no problem paying for products. Our money is the main problem. And this deflation, which will cause this deflation after the euro becomes less trustworthy after Britain leaves, and possibly this could create a domino effect, having other countries leave and the euro collapsing completely. I see a strong outlook for the dollar. As a matter of fact, I also see a potential outlook for the yen to come back, which is Chinese currency, and people might start trading that. But what I can tell you is that a lot of people that are getting hysterical about the next Great Depression happening because the UK left, I wouldn't worry about it. Those stock prices will bounce back in the next couple weeks when people get over the hysteria of it and stop selling and buying up everything they can. Things will bounce back. Everything will be okay. Britain wasn't using the euro anyways, which is a good sign. So I'm not worried about their currency being too ridiculously affected. However, the trust in the euro will certainly go down considering UK left the European Union and these banks are getting 1/3 less money from their total profits. It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing how these surprising things can just come up and happen like this. And honestly, I was personally shocked at this. But it's good, and the funny thing is I hear all kinds of arguments about this being racist from the left. And to me, that is just laughable. I mean, let me go over with you, show you a couple things about the cost of the EU for the UK. The cost of EU membership to the UK, you're talking about £15 billion, which is 0.06% of the UK's GDP, or £6.883 billion net. So the UK government spending for EU membership in total amounts to £83 billion. That's billion with a B. If you include all possible costs, such as an estimated $48 billion on regulation costs, or that adds up to about £1,380 per head. So the net contribution costs of $7.1 billion is, you're looking at a lot of money that these people are spending. And I mean, not to mention the inefficient policies. Let's talk about those. A large percentage of EU spending, around 40%, goes on the common agricultural policy. And I'm not taking this from some, garbage source. This is from economicshelp.org, talking about some of the disadvantages of being in the EU. For many years, it distorted the agricultural industries. This is what they write. This distorted agricultural markets by placing minimum prices on food. This led to higher prices for consumers, encouraging oversupply. Reforms to CAP have reduced, but not eliminated this wastage. A big existing problem with CAP is that it has rewarded large landowners with little reflection of social benefit. So, looking into this, I mean, I think Britain made a very good decision by leaving the EU. I can definitely say that with confidence. I definitely think in the long term they're going to see leaps and bounds in their economy. They're going to be able to trade as a sovereign nation anymore. They're going to try and bring maybe more manufacturing jobs back. They can tariff again. There's so many, and I mean so many benefits for them leaving that, I can't even begin to talk more about it. This Brexit thing is the beginning. And you saw similar things happening about 100 years ago, too, in Europe, where political tensions were high. Political tensions were very high in Europe. They were high in the United States, too. You had this communism versus nationalism mindset. People were rioting and fighting in the streets, and this wasn't in just Germany which later became fascist. This was in China. This was in South Korea and North Korea. This was in Vietnam. This was worldwide. We saw this communism versus nationalism clash. And I honestly think with the introduction of the alt-right into politics and the regressive left becoming ever more popular among the social justice warrior crowd, who, let's be honest, nobody really takes seriously. But honestly, nobody really takes the white supremacists on the right seriously either. However, these two are going at it the exact same way. You're seeing riots. Like recently today, there was a stabbing where a neo-Nazi started stabbing protesters at one of their events. But, I mean, you honestly see the same thing from the regressive left, where they attack people at Trump rallies. It is communism and globalism versus nationalism and national sovereignty and having borders. That's the main culture war that we're seeing right now, and it's totally extreme left versus extreme right. But as you know, it'll probably fizzle out, and that's what I'm hoping for, because the last thing I want to see is, European countries becoming fascist countries again and us leading us into World War III, which none of us, I don't think, want to see. This is definitely the beginning of the 21st century officially. I think that the last 16 years we were kind of emerging ourselves as a 2000s culture. But I think now we're really starting to emerge and kind of define the 21st century as something different. We're definitely making leaps and bounds in the technology area. We're adopting new ideas. We're kind of pulling away from the Bush era foreign policy, Cold War era foreign policy mindsets. And we're kind of melding everything into our own century. And what's to come, I honestly can tell you, I have no idea. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this century has in store for us. Think about it this way: 16 years it took for the 20th century to take off, and for it to be defined as what it is. And it was defined as the century of war, of conflict, of resolution, and eventually of peace. But now we are just emerging in a similar fashion, and that it may be something to be scared of. It also may be something to be proud of. We are finally having a political awakening. People are voting more in this election than past elections. It was unheard of because voter turnout lately through the past 3 or 4 elections has been at all-time lows. I think there's really been a political awakening in this country. I'm just hoping that it's not too far to the left or too far to the right. We don't want to become an authoritarian regime, whether it be fascist or communist. And that's what we have to look at. We have to be very, very skeptical of what ideologies we subscribe to. We don't want to become too extreme. Now, the interesting thing about the extreme people on the right is that they came out of nowhere. They just decided, this is what I personally believe, is that they just decided, is like, you know what, the left is never going to stop calling us racists, sexists, homophobes, and bigots, and these social justice warriors. There's just no arguing with them. So let's just become exactly what they say we are. And lo and behold, you have the birth of the alt-right. And as scary as they may be, and as easily as they could become the majority and possibly the new Republican Party, it's sort of a breath of fresh air as well to see somebody at least combating the regressive left. I mean, for the longest time, the Republican Party really hadn't had its outsider group of crazies like the regressive left does. Like the social justice warriors, like Black Lives Matter and feminists. We just haven't had that. Now, you might want to call neo-Nazis and the KKK right wing, but personally I would disagree with that statement, simply because, first off, there isn't a lot of them. Like, there's a lot of feminists and Black Lives Matter, blah, 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 doing their protests. Riots, I think, would be a better term. But to look at this honestly, the alt-right is serving its purpose. They're reactionaries. They're not necessarily radicals. say that their ideas are radical, yes. But to say that their hate, their intolerance of minorities and other, and other religions and pretty much anything that isn't Western has been well earned by the regressive left, and it is purely a response from their insanity over the last few years. And I cannot stress that enough. They are reactionaries, not radicals. But to digress from that topic, let's move on to our next topic. We're going to talk about the First Amendment issue. We're going to talk about UC Irvine banning college Republicans for inviting Milo again, then later unbanning them after pressure. Oh, this is really interesting, guys. This is really interesting, guys, because this goes into the whole college mindset of you can't say certain things, and most importantly, right-wing things. So apparently what happened is that they had initially re-invited Milo Yiannopoulos to speak. All right, so this is from Voice of OC. They said, UCI administrators requested to meet with Ariana Rollins, college Republicans at UCI's president, under the guise of debriefing and debriefing the planning process of the college Republicans at UCI. Social Justice is Cancer by Milo Yiannopoulos, which took place June 2nd, only hours after the conclusion of that meeting. Cruci executives were emailed by a UCI administrator from the UCI Student Center informing the club almost a full month after the event, but 4 hours after meeting with the administration, that not only college Republicans at UCI were suspended for the concluded spring 2016 quarter, but the next 3 quarters as well. Good grief. This is what I'm talking about. I mean, free speech is just simply under attack in this nation right now. It really is. This is like a war on campus, and we have to fight it, and we have to win it. This is a joke. I mean, I can't believe what I'm reading. They're for inviting a speaker on campus that combats the social justice warriors narrative of white-shaming, anti-America speech is apparently suspension-worthy at your local colleges these days. Absolutely unacceptable. College is supposed to be a place of diverse ideas, diverse thought, where you're supposed to learn and develop your mind into a free-thinking individual. These are not indoctrination centers. This isn't the Hitler Youth. This isn't propaganda. We're supposed to be going to school to learn to think. That's the most important thing. I think every single American child should be in ethics courses, logic courses, and philosophy courses. Because without the ability to think, you are simply not going to process information properly as a voter, as an adult, and as a citizen. This is just, I cannot believe this. Only hours after the conclusion of the meeting of the college Republicans at UCI, the executives mailed by the UCI administrator from UCI Student Center informing the club almost a full month after the event. A full month that they were getting suspended for the next 3 quarters. That's a full for the next 3 quarters. That's a full academic year at UCI. The cited reason that the college Republicans failed to provide a certificate of insurance for the private security hired for the event to protect Yiannopoulos. Really? Well, let me give you some insight. I was actually over at the Milo Yiannopoulos event that was held at DePaul University over here in Chicago, Lincoln Park to be more specific. At this event, they had security, but here's the kicker. They had paid for security, they raised the money for it, and then at the last second, right before Milo was about to join us for the event at DePaul, the school took it upon itself to drop another $1,000 extra security cost on the DePaul College Republicans at the last second and said he could not come unless it was paid. So Milo picked up the tab, donated some money so he could be there. Awesome. Milo's cool. I like Milo. He's a great guy. I had the chance to talk with him after the event. He's great. Anyways, what happened later is we have this man from Black Lives Matter come up, start blowing a whistle every time Milo tries to speak, snatches a mic from the moderator of the Milo event, and then starts blowing the whistle into that microphone, making these ear-piercing sounds. He later threatened to hit Milo Yiannopoulos after Milo decided to make a joke that he would hit on him if he wasn't such an idiot. And you know what security did? All that security that they paid for, that security that UCI was demanding, literally demanding that these people have, and then decide to suspend them for not purchasing it. They did nothing. At DePaul, they did absolutely nothing. And the police were called on top of it. There were threats being made. The security stood there and did nothing. And the police stood there and did nothing. You know why? Because DePaul said to them, don't do anything. And the cops were infuriated that they had to stand there and watch these events transpire. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the left. The left at its finest. It is disgusting that at a school that is supposed to promote ideas of diversity of thought, that they will allow some hoodlums to jump up onto the stage, deny everyone in that building who wanted to come their right to listen and the speaker's right to free speech at their own private event and disturb it after paying an extra $1,000 for security. And they just stood there and told them to let it happen. Now, to me, this is bullying. This is bullying at its finest. They are trying to discourage people from thinking the way the right thinks. Why? Because the leftist teachers unions, the leftist teachers' schools of thought demand that. Their jobs depend on it. Their pay rates depend on it. Now, this may not be the case at DePaul, considering they're a private university, but it rings true in our entire public school system. These teachers are all unionized, and they're all working in their self-interest, and obviously their self-interest is to make more money. And I'm sure they want to make more money. I get it. Yeah, it'd be nice to have more money on the table. However, the only way they're going to do that when they're negotiating with the American taxpayers is to subscribe to a leftist ideology that demands more government spending on education, which is proven to do nothing, by the way, to spend more money on teachers' salaries, because apparently teachers that are paid more automatically are better. I don't know, but that's the argument they make. Anyways, moving on to this, it's just so ridiculous that they would propose that these students be suspended for not paying for security that is proven in the past to not even work. I'm sorry, but I don't see how that makes any sense. This is what I mean by saying these people, whether it be in government or college administration, want one thing: control. They want to control the youth. They want the youth to grow up to represent their self-interest. That being higher pay, more spending on education, the growth of government, the growth of influence a teacher has over a child, and the less influence parents have over their child. These are all things that help teachers, that make society more dependent on teachers. Now, there are outliers. There are teachers who actually do a good job. And me personally, I think those are the people that need to be paid more. The ones that aren't indoctrinating their students. The ones that are actually encouraging diverse thought, that love hearing other opinions, that don't shut them down, that don't argue with their students unless they say something that's radically false. They let the opinions run wild. They let students freely debate with one another. Where is this forum of ideas? Because God knows that me and many, many, many other college students that I've come in contact have not been getting the same experience at all whatsoever. They just simply haven't. The leftist teachers have an agenda, and until we figure out a way to de-incentivize teachers with the growth of government, the sooner we can have a realistic, fair, diverse education system. that includes all ideas, not just left-wing ones. And it absolutely disgusts me that our education system is so biased. Because you know why? These people are creating not just workers, not just our future. They're creating voters. Voters who will vote away our rights. Now, millennials, I want you to listen to me when I say this, because I know a lot of you may not be the most right-wing. I get it. You like, gay marriage. You like all you like the idea of having free college. Well, here's the thing. Free college comes at a price, because it's not free. You're going to be paying for your college education that you received as a young person for the rest of your life, whether you utilized it or didn't utilize it. That's the problem with free college. If a dropout fails in the free education that the government provided them, that money is wasted because that person doesn't have a degree. And not only that, let's say everybody passed. The law of supply and demand clearly dictates that the more people that have degrees, the less jobs will be available that include degrees. So you're going to have a harder time finding a job. This is why I really stress, that college isn't necessarily the choice for everybody. There's plenty of trades that you can learn. There's plenty of skills you can develop. There really is. And us as millennials need to recognize that. We need welders. We need people in manufacturing with skills that can't do things that everybody else can. We don't need unskilled labor. We need skilled labor. And some people just aren't willing to go and learn a trade rather than go to school and get a liberal arts degree and fail. Now, I know what you're saying. I'm a complete hypocrite because I'm going to school and getting a liberal arts degree. I'm like, yes, that's true. I am. However, I have worked my butt off to make certain connections, to network in the industry so that I can have a career in my field. The amount of work I put into this, honestly, it would have been easier just to go and get a job as a welder. It's true. It really is. Because I'd be done. I wouldn't have to worry about anything. I can get a job, making a living, and I'd be happy. But I don't know what it is about me, but the one thing I excel at is arguing with people. It's not one of my better qualities, but I do. I love to debate. It's one of my favorite things. It's one of the biggest ways that I learn as well, is through debate. And I have such a burning passion for the future of this country, for the future of my generation, that I can't imagine. I can't sit back and watch as our generation falls, because that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're becoming a group of lazy, entitled, spoiled brats, even more so than the previous generation. Now, it's time for us, millennials, to wake up. We have to wake up. If we don't wake up, we're going to end up just like Venezuela, where we're starving, where we have to man up, where we have to work more than we've ever even dreamed of working in our entire lives, just to stay alive. And by the way, we're going to be doing this without our free speech, without our guns, and without our due process. Because the government, what they say, will go in the society that I've seen so many of us millennials advocating for. And that honestly scares me more than anything else, is to watch my generation die. Because I don't want to go down with that ship. I want prosperity for the future. I want prosperity for us. And the only way to do that is to be hard workers. We have to work those extra hours. We don't need to demand a living wage at a comfortable 40 hours a week. We need to go that extra mile. We need to work those 50-hour weeks. We need to make that overtime. We need to lower taxes for people who work overtime. We should encourage hard work. We're millennials. We can do anything. We're 80 million strong. I don't want to see any more laziness from us. We can do it. We just got to put in the effort. We got to understand that maybe until we are able to get a job that pays super well, that we're going to have to work really hard for a short period of time to reap a lifetime of benefits in return. And if that means learning a trade because math is too hard for you or science is too hard for you or reading's too hard for you, anything, then please go do it. Don't demand a free education because that's what your leftist teachers want, so they can mold your mind into exactly what they want you to be. You're a human being. You're free. You're free. Your brain is yours. You make of it what you want to make of it. It drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. I'm gonna move on because it just upsets me just thinking about it. I'm not willing to watch my generation fall down the toilet. I'm not. Nor should you be. So I want to see us rise up, take responsibility, and become the best generation in American history. We don't want things like UC Irvine happening anymore. Our free speech is precious. It is precious. Our rights, every single one of them, is precious. We need to defend them. We need to cherish them. And we need to fight to the death to protect them. That is what being an American is. That is what the soldiers who stormed Normandy Beach, who fought for our freedom, did. They fought to the death to preserve the rights of me, you, and the entire future of our country. I'm going to move on from this, and we're going to talk a little bit about, let's talk about some gun control. Recently, the Democrats decided to do a sit-in in the House of Representatives. I was just sitting there laughing, to be honest. I mean, let's think about this for a second. You're telling me that the Democrats decided to sit down in the Senate and make sure nothing gets done. And here I am thinking to myself, isn't that what they're doing in there anyways? So, I mean, basically, they just went in and did their job. Making sure that nothing gets passed, making sure the Republicans don't get any of their agendas pushed through, make sure bipartisanship is dead, to make sure to obstruct in every possible way Congress's agenda. And the best part is they got Barack Obama working right in them. He'll pass his executive orders and then blame Republicans for being obstructionist, while Obama will veto laws, and while the Democrats will vote on almost a completely partisan basis on the issue of guns. I believe there was 2 filibusters about this by Democrats about adding gun control by making sure that people with people on the terror watch list can't buy guns. And, here I am just, thinking to myself, terror watch lists. And I think Trey Gowdy made a good point when he said this. He's like, so do we, when somebody's on the terror watch list, what other rights can we take away besides their Second Amendment rights just because they're on the list? Because you don't choose whether you go on it or go off of it. You are simply put on it. And there is no process to get on it. There is only a process of getting off of it. And he noted that he uses the word due process. He says there is no due process in getting on the watch list. Interesting, right? Considering that, he decides to say, he's like, what else? Well, he tells this lady, he's like, well, what else, what other rights should be suspended? Should we take away their First Amendment rights? Should we say that these people shouldn't be allowed to run a website until they petition their government to get off this list? Should we take away their Fifth Amendment rights and imprison them without any court hearing, not let them have a lawyer until they petition their government to get off of it? And then this was the best one. He says, or what about the Eighth Amendment? Should we be able to subject people on the terror watch list to cruel and unusual punishment unless they petition their government to get off the terror watch list? And obviously, she's like, well, I don't have an answer for you, ma'am. And I'm like, this is perfect. This is perfect. This is exactly the point. The Democrats do not hold the Second Amendment to the same standard of the First Amendment and many of the other amendments that you hear them complaining about, like the right to privacy. like the right to a quick and speedy trial, the right to due process, habeas corpus. When it comes to the Second Amendment, they're like, oh, well, that needs to be regulated. And yeah, it should be temporarily suspended if you're on a secret FBI list that you don't even know if you're on until you're told you're on it by the government. And if you want to get off, you have to petition your government. Come on. They act like the Second Amendment is just this little thing, like it's some sort of just some silly law that was passed. No, this was in the Bill of Rights. The founding documents of this country gave Americans the right to bear arms, and then they even continued to use the qualifier shall not be infringed. It means you can't tamper with this. This is so important. This is the right that protects all the others. Without the Second Amendment, the government can take away your First Amendment rights. The government can take away your habeas corpus rights. They can do all of the things that they want to by getting rid of the Second Amendment. And this is a perfect example of government working in its own self-interest. That's right. The government's self-interest is to get as much money as possible, to get as much power as possible, and to grow as much as possible. They want the government to grow as much as possible. Why? Because that's the interest of government. That is the government's self-interest. That is what they want to accomplish. And there is only one side of the aisle advocating for all of these in one package. And it's Democrats. It's Democrats and the left. They want nothing more than to see government grow. I'm telling you, folks, we have to end this. We have to work together. We have to stop the growth of government because, honestly, it's gotten out of control. It has gotten completely out of control. We need to step up as Americans. We need to step up and tell our government, back off. Back off now. Because we, the millennial generation, we, the Gen Xers, we, the baby boomers, will not stand to see our freedoms taken away from us through legislation. We're not going to have our rights written away. Looks like we're coming to the end of the show here, guys. The thing that I'm going to leave you all with today, a little bit of food for thought. You cannot blame government for working in its own self-interest through gaining more money, size, and power. What you can blame are the ignorant people who allow it to happen and continue to openly support it. This will be the death of the republic. And this is why it is failing today. And there's some food for thought for you. Thank you so much for joining us. Check us out online at ahigherstandard.us. Thank you so much for tuning in. I can't wait to see you in the next 2 weeks.